You want me? Come and get me!
Welcome back to another Marvel Breakdown. Today we're going to be talking about Captain America Brave New World. Anthony Mackie finally has his own movie. And you know what? I feel like they did him dirty in this one. Don't get me wrong, the movie still had its fun moments, good parts. Anthony Mackie did a fantastic job playing Sam Wilson, Captain America. The addition of Joaquin Torres was great. I really liked his character, and I think he paired really well with Sam Wilson. And Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross was fantastic. I think he did a great job. The movie did have a lot of flaws, though, when it came to its pacing, its camera angles, and the fact that I felt like it was just jumping from the next plot point over and over and over again, and some of the fights felt a little anticlimactic. However, before I get too far into it, in this video, we're going to be breaking down the movie, talking about all the MCU Easter eggs and references that happened during it, breaking down the comic book characters and who they are in the comics and how they're created in the MCU, and, of course, talking about that post-credits scene and the ending of the movie and how it sets up the future Avengers and other Marvel projects. With that, let's jump into the start of the movie, where we have this film starting off with President Ross. Because now he's become president after everything that's gone on in the last few years with Marvel, and they're talking about the celestial mass sticking out of the ocean. We're finally getting something on Tiamat from Eternals. After all these years, after Eternals comes out, they're finally dealing with this plot point. It was just a lot of talking about it and the adamantium that's within it. However, it was nice to finally get like that connection to the MCU, like something that references this big giant thing that sticks out of the planet, because that was one of my biggest gripes from the MCU the last few years. Some events like the Eternals that, you know, are big world-changing events that never get referenced. Like, we did have a couple of the references, like in She-Hulk, there was an article. It's finally nice to have something focus on it for once. Now we had Sam and Abe's bar, and the news was doing a nice exposition dump on Ross and Incredible Hulk. They did that a lot in this movie, where they were just info dumping and giving us the exposition for so many characters. And in this instance, it was the Incredible Hulk, giving us the details about what happened during that movie with the battle in Harlem, with the Hulk versus the Abomination and ruining that town, and how it was kind of Ross's fault. They were very focusing on that as we went into it until Sam went on to his mission. And then when we do get Sam on his mission, he's going against the Serpent Society, which in the comics, they're a business enterprise of criminals and mercenaries whose costumes were based on snakes. Now, in this movie, they did not wear any kind of snake paraphernalia other than like an emblem on their jackets. And the thing is, during this whole sequence, it was fun. I really liked seeing Sam fly in, hit the ground, using the vibranium shockwave to send people back. Like, that was cool seeing him use that vibranium suit and getting him do some pretty badass Captain America moments. I really liked how he used Red Wing around the area to move strategically and take out the guys to save the nuns and the priests that were there. But however, I will say, I did not realize he was actually fighting Copperhead in the one scene when he fights the big guy by himself, because he did not look like Copperhead from the comics, and I didn't even notice they called him Copperhead in the movie until the end credits. But I will say I did like that fight sequence because it showed Sam, a regular human, going against a tougher opponent and having some good quips within it. And I think it was a nice little nod where he's like, I have shit to do, instead of being like, I can do this all day. Like, it was a fun moment. I really do like Sam's Captain America, so it's great to see him being Captain America. Now, Giancarlo Esposito's character was actually playing Sidewinder, and he's the leader of the Serpent Society in the comics as well, so it's cool to see that. Again, wasn't actually wearing his comic book costume, so it's kind of hard to tell that this character was this character until they said that he was Sidewinder. And I think that was probably one of my biggest annoyances, is we're getting more into this Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're getting more into the weird, the wacky stuff. Why can't we just give these people at least somewhat of their comic book costume? Make them look a little weird, make them look a little goofy, or at least have like little things that implement to look like they're their snake-based personas. And I think that would have been really cool. We knew the Serpent Society was going to be in this movie. They weren't really the Serpent Society. They were still mercenaries, and they were still running the business and operating for people, but they weren't snakes. And that was my biggest problem. And I get it, it's being more realistic. Actually, I shouldn't say it's my biggest problem. I do hope, I like what the MCU is doing with a lot of these characters. I just think, I wish they would go a little bit more comic booky, even though it's a little weird. I think it would have been fun. But during all those scenes, it was great to see Joaquin Torres come in as like the Falcon, using Sam's old wings to kick some ass. And I really liked his presence because he was very energetic, he was fun, and I think he really pairs well with Sam Wilson. So I'm looking forward to Sam mentoring him and making him this better hero as he takes on that Falcon identity later on. And the thing is, in the comics, Joaquin Torres literally becomes a Falcon. During Sam Wilson's run as Captain America, Joaquin Torres was captured by the Sons of the Serpent, given over to Carl Malice, where Malice in the comics is a character fascinated with superhuman powers. Once Captain America found out that Joaquin disappeared, the hero investigated and ultimately came face to face with Malice, who had been experimenting on him, turning him into a human Falcon hybrid using Cap's own avian partner, Red Wing, because in the comics, Red Wing is an actual bird that works with the Falcon. So after that event, Joaquin Torres eventually became the Falcon, being literally half Falcon. So I mean, it would be really cool if they went this way in the MCU. I don't think they're going to go this way because it's a little bit more weird. You know, he's literally half Falcon. After the end of this movie, there's a chance it could happen, where he needs some experimental procedure to help him get back in mobility because he was burned after being exploded by the missile during the flight scene. But we'll see. I have a feeling they're just going to put him back in the suit, maybe a better, stronger one. But it would be kind of cool in a future Captain America movie, this happened to him and it changes the perspective of this character. But let me know in the comments what you think and how you think they should deal with him. During this whole sequence with him going against the Serpent Society, there was another big exposition dump, but this time about Sam's vibranium suit, giving us information that he got it from the Wakandans during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just giving us all that information that they need so that people who haven't seen that series will understand what's going on. And I honestly don't think they needed to give all this exposition. I think they could have just left it as is. I think a lot of people did see the series, even though maybe the casual person might have not. I don't think they would have questioned it too much because of the fact that it's a Marvel movie. They're being superheroes, and maybe they could have made an offhand comment just being like, oh yeah, vibranium wings, rather than giving us a whole explanation about it again. However, I will say, after the whole Serpent Society incident, it was really nice to see Sam get recognized from the other soldiers as Captain America. He's been Captain America for like 3 years now, so it's great to see him being recognized as a hero rather than getting the hate and people not being recognized as Captain America. So I really like that part of the film, and seeing that he's gaining in the respect of people around him, which he most likely deserves after everything he's gone through. And the soldier that's recognized him right away is named Dunphy, and in the comics this could be a reference to Dennis Dunphy, Demolition Man, who was actually friends with Sam Wilson as well during his comic run as Captain America. I mean, he didn't last through the movie, but it could be a little nod to that. Joaquin makes a joke during this section as well, that he wants Sam to introduce him to Ant-Man, a reference to Sam and Ant-Man's first interaction where Sam got beaten by him, kind of a joke playing that they're kind of friends and how their friendship grew most likely after Civil War and then the events of Endgame. And I would have loved to see maybe a little appearance of him during this film, maybe at the very end, or maybe in a post-credit scene of Sam introducing Joaquin to Scott Lang. I think that would have been fun, and they definitely set it up, so maybe in the future he will see him and there'll be like a little fun moment of him geeking out meeting this hero. However, after all that led to Sam and Joaquin going to see Isaiah Bradley so Joaquin could get trained by him, and they did just another info dump here, and they did pretty much 2 info dumps in this movie for Isaiah Bradley. The first one giving us information about him being the first black Captain America, how he has a super soldier serum, and then the second one, after he gets imprisoned, he shouldn't be going back to prison because of the fact that after South Korea, him going and helping his fellow soldiers, getting thrown in jail, getting experimented on, just showing the trauma this character's been through. But they're just another info dump if you haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Just another moment in this film that they just had to give you all this information if you hadn't seen that series. And I will say that is probably the biggest problem with the movie is the amount of exposition dumping they did, because they mainly had to do it for the Incredible Hulk and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. 2 things that actually did take place before this, but not everyone might have seen. Honestly, I can't really think of a better way of doing it myself, so it's hard to complain about it, but sometimes it was very obvious and just very, it felt very forced at times. However, with Isaiah Bradley, it did lead into some very good moments between him and Sam, having a nice little fight scene as they're training, and Sam getting his ass kicked as he gets launched to the ground. Like, that was great, seeing Sam go up against an actual super soldier, learning how to be better, but also giving Isaiah Bradley the respect he deserves, which I do really like the relationship in this film. Now, during this scene, we also see Isaiah Bradley punch the punching bag off the stand, just like how Captain America does it in the Avengers movie. And we also got some information during it that Isaiah hates Ross because of everything that Ross has done with the Sokovia Accords, with Captain America, and how he's not a very good person. Even mentioning how Sam was thrown in the raft by Ross, a mention to the events of Civil War when Team Cap got thrown in jail for a time being until they broke out. But I did like it how it's giving Sam this chance to tell him that he wants to give people a second chance. You know, people can be better, and that shows you where Captain America is going to be. He's the type of Captain America who's going to try to look out for people, help everyone he can, while also trying to help people have a second chance at life. You know, they've made mistakes, but they can be better, and I do really like to see where he's going with that. Plus, it just shows that Sam's a good guy looking out for people and respecting Isaiah Bradley, so I really like how they're portraying his character so far. But then we get Sam getting invited to the White House for the Celestial Island Treaty, and that's what they're calling the giant celestial out of the ground, is the Celestial Island. Which I guess does make sense. They don't know it's named Tiamat. It is bigger than an island, so it does make sense they're calling it that. And I'm actually shocked that when we did get to this island finally, we didn't have like any anything on it. It was just a giant rock. I thought by the time they eventually got to it, it looked like maybe an ecosystem would have been growing on it. However, that never happened. However, back to Sam going to meet Ross, I do like the little comment about Ross looking different, which is a little meta reference to the fact that the actors changed because the original actor passed away. And I do like how they did a little nod to that. And I do love how we have Ross wanting to rebuild the Avengers because it led into a really good scene where Sam doesn't know if he wants to do that. Because the thing is, Ross is the one that broke up the Avengers to begin with the Sokovia Accords. That made Civil War. The Avengers left. But Ross pulled up a good point. Without the Avengers, half the world would have still been gone. Which means that even though the Sokovia Accords happened, the Avengers broke apart, after the events of Infinity War and Endgame, the world needs the Avengers once again. Because if it wasn't for them, they would have been screwed. And I do like how they're setting that up. And, you know, it never came to pass because pretty soon after, Ross is like, I'm not working with you anymore because of Sam wanting to help Isaiah Bradley. But I do love how they're kind of set up Sam to be this new leader of the Avengers, the new Captain America leading the new Avengers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who's going to be on that team. The thing is, in this moment, if Sam agreed to work with Ross, that means the Avengers would have worked for Ross. Pretty much the whole reason Civil War happened is because they didn't want to listen to the government telling them where they can and can't go. So the fact that they'd be working for Ross means they wouldn't have the control they wanted to. And that does make sense. And I love how Ross like, we'll deal with it when we get to it. Which I do think if, say, this was to come to pass and the events of the movie didn't play out the same way, and the Avengers did need to listen to Ross, I don't think they would have listened and went and did their own thing anyways. Then that would have led into a different conflict for another Avengers film. But, of course, that didn't happen. The movie played out completely differently. But I do like to think about that to see, you know, what if? If they did a what if series, this could be a what if moment. But that series is over, so we're not getting that. But hey, it could have worked. But as we go forward, we do get the moment of them talking about the giant celestial at the conference, talking about how there's adamantium there now. Now, the thing is with adamantium being in this universe is that this seems to be the only discovery of it. Now, adamantium in the comics, most people know it because it's Wolverine's skeleton, because it was grafted to him during Weapon X. Now, the thing is, in this universe, because this is the first time they found adamantium, that means if Wolverine has been around this entire time, which we did get a little reference to him in She-Hulk with a little newspaper article talking about someone getting a bar fight, he could be around. And maybe in the past, Weapon X did have some sort of adamantium. It wasn't the first time it had it, but it was very rare and people rarely found it, didn't know it existed, and only a select few were able to use it. Most likely criminals who found it and then hit on the black market. You know, little rumblings about what it actually might be. I mean, we still don't know when he's coming, most likely after Secret Wars, because we will be getting Deadpool and Wolverine from Deadpool's universe in that movie, so we definitely have stuff to come from there. But I do want to see an MCU main Wolverine, and I do want to see him come from the MCU, not another universe. So very curious to see how they're going to portray him when he does come. During the scene, we did get a moment where they're talking about how, you know, adamantium is not being held by an isolated country, referencing Wakanda, who has vibranium, the strongest metal in the world till now, and how they're hoarding all of it, just to reference the Black Panther and everyone else being isolated from the rest of the world where they don't want to share vibranium, and after the events of Black Panther 2. So a nice little nod there, and I love how they have the little connections. That's the only thing I really want from the movies, is having the little connections for the different places in the MCU, but still push the story forward. So this did a good job with that, giving us little references and Easter eggs for different past events and how it's all connected. Now, this is also the scene where Isaiah Bradley gets up and starts shooting at Ross, but before he did it, music started playing, and instantly I thought of Bucky's coding and how he was being controlled as a Winter Soldier. The brainwashing and all the different speech that they used to control him, I thought that was what's going on here. And the thing is, that was kind of confirmed later on where we find out the leader was the one brainwashing him using sound, but I did think it was interesting how they were doing it. It's not what I actually expected for them from the trailer. I thought they were going to be compromised fully and they got to him before they got to the event, but instead, with the different flashes and the music that were showed at the event, that's what happened. And I do like how they kind of put the pieces together. A little mystery that was going on was very interesting. But that did lead to Isaiah getting thrown back in prison and Sam going on his quest to free Isaiah and figure out what actually happened, which did lead into the confrontation with Ross and how Sam wanted to figure out what happened to Isaiah Bradley, but Ross shuts him down because it doesn't make sense for Captain America to be dealing with this conflict because it's a close personal friend of his and it's like a conflict of interest. And we also get the line that "you're not Steve Rogers" moment here, giving us that Ross is kind of turning on Sam. This is also where he said he's not going to do the Avengers anymore because Sam is not listening to him. He's trying to go offhand, and they're definitely setting up like the conflict, what was going on in this film, where Ross and Sam don't agree with one another. But this also set up like the great relationship with Isaiah and Sam, how much Sam's going to do to try to prove this man's innocent and the respect he's shown him to try to get him out of prison to save his life. So I really like how Sam was portrayed in this movie because he's trying to always look out for people and do the right thing. And then when Sam goes to Joaquin Torres at their home base, we do get the explanation that Sam realized Isaiah and other people with the sound were acting like how Bucky does with his coding. So I do love how they did reference his friend and how they were talking back about what happened during Winter Soldier and Civil War. So nice moments to show him understanding and putting the pieces together that they were being brainwashed. Now, during all these scenes, we did meet a character named Ruth Batseraph, which in the comics, she's actually a mutant with the powers of superhuman strength, durability, all the other, basic superhuman stuff, as well as regeneration. And she actually first appeared in Incredible Hulk number 250. But the thing is, her character in this does not resemble her comic character at all. Instead, it just takes the name. Where in this movie, she's actually an ex-Widow, tying back to the event of Black Widow, freeing the Widows from being controlled and mentioning the Red Room, which is just all references to the Widows. So I thought it was interesting they threw a Widow in this, and I think it's kind of homage to Captain America Winter Soldier, where we had Natasha being a main character in that, just throwing another Widow in to kind of fit with Captain America. Her character was interesting to help push the plot forward, but that was about it. But I will say, the Sidewinder attack on Sam Wilson was a lot of fun. I really like that scene, watching him try to take down Sam. It felt very Winter Soldier-esque after Bucky went after Steve and them. So I really liked the moment where he's taking him down. He did get pretty messed up during the fight, getting stabbed twice. But luckily, they explained it later, they had Kevlar lining on, so it made sense why he was able to survive that. But I did like him using his smarts, making that gas in the junkyard, and taking Sidewinder down. This really good moment of showing Sam be a proper Captain America, proper fighter. Because remember, he was in the military and S.H.I.E.L.D. before he became Captain America and Falcon, so he has experience fighting, so I do like how they're showing that off. Now, when we are at the base, we do see a picture of Sam and Bucky. Nice little moment to their friendship, but we also get to see Sam's new suit, which I thought was really nice. I do love how they showed both suits from the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, the new one for this movie. The only thing I hate, the nanotech helmets. That's the only thing I hate. Otherwise, the suits look fantastic. The wings look great. I love the vibranium. I just hate the nanotech helmets. And I that's a general thing for the MCU. I just hate those so much. Because at this point, everyone has one, and only some characters should. Iron Man makes sense, Star-Lord makes sense, but everyone else, no thank you. Now, this was the part of the movie where we started to figure out that the leader was behind everything. And I think that was a cool reveal, finding out that he was the genius behind this master plan, getting the adamantium from the Serpent Society, and then trying to ruin Ross's entire career because of Ross using him for all these years for experiments, saving Ross's life. And Stern was the only one that was able to keep him alive while he was dying. And then Ross not following through with their deal and keeping him locked up in that black site at Camp Echo 1. So the leader was just being used. He wasn't getting free. And after the events of the Incredible Hulk, he was just stuck there. Now, also, Camp Echo 1 in the comics, that's an actual place. It was actually a containment facility used for Bruce Banner to create a peaceful environment for him. So I thought that was cool. And it even showed up in a Champions comic with Amadeus Cho. When Sam and Joaquin were investigating the lab, looking all over it, we did get to see a video clip of Stern at the university, which is a clip from the Incredible Hulk when they first meet Samuel Stern in that movie. And I will say the leader's design in this movie was freaking weird. Now, the thing is, no matter what, it would have been weird. In the comics, he has a giant head. Now, I think he should have had a bigger head in this movie just to kind of go full into that weirdness. But instead, it was a small head, seeing the brain on top of it, and it was really grotesque. But you know what? At least I give him props for turning him green and giving him somewhat of a leader look, because it is weird, and it definitely wouldn't have worked well in live action, but we got it. Now, if you haven't watched The Incredible Hulk, in the Incredible Hulk movie, he was a professor who was trying to find a cure for Bruce Banner, and he managed to create a temporary antidote for the Hulk, but then when he was forced to repeat it for Emil Blonsky because he wanted to become powerful like the Hulk, he ended up creating the Abomination, which, when that happened, he got smacked into the side, cracked his head open, Bruce's blood fell into him, which then ended up making his mind get a rapid mutation, greatly increasing its mental abilities. Which, it's cool to see the Incredible Hulk kind of be sequeled in this. I don't really think it should have, but it was cool to get these characters back again after so many years of not seeing them. However, the difference between this and the comics is that in the comics, simple-minded American laborer in a chemical plant, but after an accident while he was working, radioactive material bombarded him with gamma radiation, turning his skin green and making his head grow larger. Now, the radiation also increases intelligence to genius level, which is the thing in the comics. He's always trying to up people with how smart he is. So that's what we're kind of getting here. We see it a lot during the film where he's talking about percentages and how he's calculating stuff. That's very the leader. So it's cool that they were still keeping that. Even though the MCU origin is a little different from the comic origin, it's still tied to the Hulk because of the gamma radiation. Now, after the leader leaves Sam walking, we did get a cool fight scene of them fighting in that base, and I thought that was fun, like showing them do a little bit close hand-to-hand combat. I was kind of questioning why Sam wasn't just wearing a suit in this moment, though, because they brought it for a reason. It was great to see some hand-to-hand combat with characters who don't have superpowers, and the choreography wasn't bad. The camera angles, a little questionable, but the choreography wasn't bad. Now, after those events, we do catch up with Ross, who's starting to show his true colors. If any country is going to have adamantium, it's going to be the US, showing that no matter what, the US wants control. He wants to be the one that controls the most powerful mineral on the planet, because if one country is going to try to do it themselves, instead it's going to be the US, so they're going to go to war for it. Really setting up that they're trying not to have another Wakanda, where Wakanda holds all the vibranium, where this time it might have been Japan. So I do like how they set up those stakes with this giant celestial, how they don't want one country controlling it. It's interesting to see because, you know, 100% there have been mercenaries going in, sneaking in, and stealing adamantium. That's what's going to set up for the black market and all that. So we will get to that eventually. But I do love how they're showing Ross's true colors, how he wants that control. That's who he is. And that was a good moment to show that kind of inner anger coming out. But then that does lead into the conflict with Japan, going to the Celestial Island, and having one of my favorite scenes from the movie, which was Sam and Joaquin flying around the giant Celestial, trying to stop the brainwashed jet fighters from taking down Japan's soldiers. And I really like that moment because we got very cool action sequences with Sam and Joaquin trying to stop the missiles. Sam literally rides one of the missiles, which I thought was a freaking crazy moment, and I actually really liked. And also having them cut up the planes, you know, flying like the Falcon and Captain America. Really good moments to show off their aerial airspace moves. And that's what I really like to see, because that's, you know, he has his wings. It's great to see him in the sky using them. Even though I felt like they were going to do a lot more in those moments, I will say it led into some really good ones. Like the moments with Joaquin almost dying, like giving us Sam word about his friend, giving us that moment of him having to pick between going after him and saving everyone else, which he has to save everyone else, of course, because that's his job. But also giving us the moments of Ross struggling before becoming a Red Hulk, the leader is getting to him. Seeing that inner conflict as he tries to calm himself down. Like, I thought these were really good moments, seeing the different struggles between the characters. And then it led into even more big moments with the hospital scene. But I will say, before we got to that, this moment felt like a big climactic moment in the movie. It felt like we were almost near the end, but instead we weren't there. This felt like a big end level moment, where instead we still had the whole Red Hulk fight to get to. That's what one of my other things about the pacing. It felt like different moments just kind of ended, and now we're like still moving on with the film, which this felt like it was almost over, and then it wasn't. Now we got the hospital scene, another one of my favorite moments from the film, because we have Bucky making his appearance. A character I think who should have been more in the movie because of what happened during the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I feel like he should have been at least in the first half of the movie. That didn't happen because we find out he's running to be a congressman. And that would explain what's going to be happening in the Thunderbolts movie, because in the trailer, we see him in court with Valentina, which means at this point, he most likely is a congressman. And then most likely after the events of Thunderbolts, he won't be a congressman anymore, and he'll be going back into being a superhero. That explains what he's doing in the Thunderbolts, and probably how he finds out the information about the characters, and how the Sentry got broken out, and how Yelena, John Walker, and Ghost were behind it. So I'm interested to seeing what they're going to do with his character going forward. It is nice to get that little nod in setting up the Thunderbolts for where he's going to be. Which makes me kind of hope that we will get a reference to Sam Wilson during that movie, or maybe see him at some point as well. Because of this movie, having their friendship there, it would make sense to have their friendship in that one as well. Now, the reason this scene was so important, because Sam was doubting himself. Because he wasn't able to help Joaquin Torres as he fell into the ocean and almost got killed by the explosion. He was doubting himself as Captain America. He feels like Steve made a mistake. He feels like he should have taken the super soldier serum because he's not strong enough to be doing this. But I do really like how Bucky talks him down. He talks to him about how Steve picked him for a reason. You know, he helps people. He inspires people. Does stuff in a way that Steve Rogers never could. And I really like that moment, showing that Sam's going to be a different type of Captain America. And Bucky says people can aspire to be him. Because he's a regular human being, people can look at him and be like, I can be a hero too. I don't need any superpowers, which is also really nice to see. You know, he might doubt himself, but he doesn't need super soldier serum to be this hero. He can still be the person that inspires and gets people going, and I really like that, which also would make him a great leader for the Avengers. And Bucky even points out Steve couldn't save everyone, so no matter what, that little weight that's on Sam about not being able to save everyone is always going to be there, but you always have to push past it so you can do as much as you can, and I really like how they're pushing his character forward. Now, I will say the one thing I wish they put in this movie was letting us know what happened to Steve. We still don't know what happened to Steve after Endgame. They have not mentioned it at all. We have not gone to a funeral. We have done nothing. He's just gone. And that's also another big gripe with like the MCU, is that we had Steve. He went to the past, he went to be with Peggy, and then he came back and gave Sam the shield after Peggy passed away, after he lived a long life. But I don't understand why we haven't seen him or a mention of him since. Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Captain America 4 were all moments that we could have introduced and dealt with that, but we did not. They just talked about Steve not being around, and that was about it. But as we move forward, we find that Dumpy has figured out what's going on with the pills that Ross has been taking, and it turns out that he's been taking gamma pills that have been filled with gamma radiation, upping the gamma radiation in Ross this entire time. So the leader has been turning him to a Hulk. I mean, the leader comes up and kills Dunphy, so RIP Dunphy, but it was all to set up that the leader was trying to get his revenge on Ross, make him ruin his reputation by turning him into the monster he once tried to stop. So I do like that reveal, and the thing is, if this movie did not show the Red Hulk in the trailers, I feel like that suspense, that build up to finding out he was the Red Hulk would have been so much better. They had these moments of him smashing the table, having it crack, having him grip the stuff in the submarine, getting angry, you could hear it crunching, and to have these moments of him slowly turning into the Hulk would have been a fantastic thing if we didn't know he would have been the Hulk, if it wasn't in all the promotional stuff. So I think that was also one of the things they ruined the film. Like, yeah, it was the ticket seller, it was the thing they wanted in the film, which felt like it was going to happen earlier in the movie. But I do really think that they should have kind of kept it out, pushed this like, hey, is he going to become the Red Hulk? What's going? Is he actually going to become the Red Hulk? And that would have helped the suspense, helped the build up, and the payoff would have been so much better. Nevertheless, we did catch up with Ross, trying to call Betty, trying to connect with his daughter. And he wants to prove to her that he's getting better, which then leads to him becoming the Red Hulk, not being able to do that. And it's kind of sad where he's trying to be this better person. He's trying to do everything he can to prove to his daughter he's better after the events of Incredible Hulk and what he did to Bruce. But now, because of what he did to Bruce and what he's done to the leader and how he's not been a good person over all these years, it's catching up with him, and his chance for redemption is getting torn away. Because we have the leader turning himself in while also enacting his plan, spreading around the information about him being put in the black site, doing experiments, making weapons for the US government, revealing everything that Ross has been doing from behind the scenes. And then in the moment, because of all this, the news reporter is giving the information to Ross, him starting to freak out, his anger is starting to come out, he can't control it anymore. The Red Hulk breaks free, starts his rampage. One of the cool notes though in this moment, as he's turning into the Red Hulk, we see the clothes burning off of him, which is a reference to his comic powers, because in the comics he actually has gamma radiation emission, where the angrier he gets, the hotter he gets. I love that little detail as well. Just ties into how the Red Hulk is different from the Green Hulk. And the thing is, in the comics as well, their leader is responsible for Ross getting his powers and becoming the Red Hulk by convincing him to work with him and MODOK, using the Hulk and the Abomination's blood to turn him into a Hulk himself, because Ross was in this very depressive state. Betty had died, Captain America had been assassinated, he was in a very down place where these villains convinced him to get the powers so that he could take on the Hulk. So even though his origin is different in this movie, it is still tied to the leader, which in the comics is the same. So I thought that was cool. I like the little details. The little details are always fun to see. Now, I will say the dumbest thing from him turning into the Red Hulk was the Secret Service. We're in a world where the Hulk exists, where we've seen him get taken on by aliens, people, and bullets don't work. We've seen it not work. But as soon as he turns into the Red Hulk, the Secret Service just started lighting him up. Now, this was a big problem for me because of the fact that, first of all, he's your president. Second of all, it's a Hulk. Bullets aren't going to do shit, and it just makes him angrier. So why do you even do that? You should focus on evacuating the area, getting people out of there, rather than trying to light up your president. Definitely an odd moment from the film, making these people kind of stupid, but it did give us a good moment of Sam coming in to save the day, and I really do like how he chased the Red Hulk away and took him on, even though he had no chance of surviving. And they pointed out on multiple times, even referencing he should have taken the super soldier serum. Fun little nod to him being a regular human going against this giant, and also them cracking a joke, the fact that how would Sam go against the Red Hulk? The scene was fun though. I really like watching Sam take him on because he's thinking strategically, he's using the vibranium wings to his advantage, and he's using the shock absorption as well, really showing how he's able to take this guy on with these wings, even though he does get his ass completely beat and almost killed as one of the wings gets ripped off, which means Sam's gonna need a new set of wings now and a new suit, so we'll be getting that in probably the new Avengers film. However, even though the fight was pretty cool, it was a very short fight, and it ended very abruptly and not really climactically. Now, the moment that Sam sends off the big shockwave, that was great, that was cool, that was awesome, but then Red Hulk was still standing up. We have him just telling him, remember Betty, remember the cherry blossoms, and that calms him down. Now, what I think would have been a better moment here is somehow Betty being there to do that. She calms her father down. She makes him realize she's wrong. Rather than her coming in at the very end, I think it would have been better to see her there to calm her father down, giving us that moment of how she's able to calm like the Hulk, calming the Red Hulk. But I digress. That was my biggest problem with the fight. I will say I do like the fight though. I do like the fight, even though it didn't last long enough. And the green screen was a little wonky here as well, so that was another problem with it. But regardless, it was fun. But at the end, we do see that Ross has now been thrown in the raft. Captain America's team was thrown in Civil War. Now we have Ross and the leader there as well. But that's when we have Betty visiting her father, and that was a nice moment to see her come in. Now, again, like, I feel like she should have come in earlier in the movie. I don't think it should have been the very end. I do think it would have been a good moment at the end, though, if Bruce showed up, talking to Ross about what happened, why is a Red Hulk now, like, who did this to him, so that Bruce could be caught up to what happened after his event of his movie. Like, this one of the things that felt very weird, that Bruce wasn't in it at all. I thought he might have showed up near the end because of the Red Hulk coming out. Maybe in a phone call, or even, like, maybe a hologram image, just like at the end of Shang-Chi, we had Bruce, Captain Marvel, and Wong all talking to Shang-Chi. That I think that would have been a moment that we should have gone here. Especially with the major things that happened in She-Hulk, where he was so concerned about the blood and getting it to other people and worrying about other people turning into Hulks. All of that storyline was just never addressed. So I'm just disappointed we never got him there. I know this isn't a Hulk movie, but there was definitely a bunch of Hulk characters. With Bruce being included would have been beneficial. Now, after all that, we do have Sam going to see Joaquin in the hospital, and I really like this scene because of Joaquin talking and about Sam and how he inspires people, and how Sam being Captain America makes people want to be better, how him being the Falcon got Joaquin into being a better person, how he wanted to be a hero, how he wants to show the world and inspire other people to be heroes. And I like it because it's kind of giving us that, you know, these characters are representing these heroes of different cultures, different races, and it helps people see themselves in these big heroes in the sky, and makes the little person want to be better. And I really like how they portray that with these two characters. Now, after all this, Joaquin is becoming the Falcon name because Sam is now accepting him as his sidekick in a way, wanting him to be what Falcon after all this, because he's proved himself, even giving him a little tip about how to fly in the sky. A really good moment, especially him telling him to prepare for the Avengers, because now they're going to be rebuilding the Avengers for what comes next. I'm surprised they did not do that at all in this movie. They could have had at least him go up to one person in a mid-credit scene being like, we're rebuilding the Avengers, are you in or are you out? Or something like that. Especially like how I said right before this, the fact that Shang-Chi had Captain Marvel, Wong, and Bruce Banner. We could have had something like that at the end of the movie with Sam calling them to be like, hey, we need to put together another Avengers team. And that would have made so much sense. They'd be like, hey, I know a guy. And then Shang-Chi would have been brought in. But they did not do that. Instead, we got a post-credit scene that just set up the next Avengers movie, but very ominously, where Sam actually goes to see the leader, and the leader talks about how it's coming. All of you heroes protecting this world. You think you're the only ones? You think this is the only world? We'll see what happens when you have to protect this place from the others. This is setting up Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret War, setting up the multiverse and how there's going to be a multiversal war that's going on. Now, the reason the leader can see this is most likely because of the way he's calculating everything with his genius level intellect. It's kind of like how Doctor Strange uses the time stone to see into other timelines. It's not an exact science, and obviously it's going to be a little bit up to interpretation because of, it's a comic book movie, but that's kind of, I think, where they were going with it. And when they're talking about other heroes, we've seen other heroes in a multitude of movies now. Deadpool and Wolverine, with the different variants there. We saw them in Multiverse of Madness. Fantastic Four is going to be a different universe. So it's all building up to that, and then them coming into the main MCU timeline when it comes to the Secret Wars and them having the giant fight. Now, the thing is, do I think this was the right call? Not at all. They should have had a mid-credit scene, a post-credit scene, setting up the Avengers. That would have been good enough. Getting Sam, getting ready to be whatever the next threat is going to come, just putting together a team, and maybe one of the characters mentioned something about Kang. Even though we're not dealing with them anymore, maybe they talk about how there's different variants in the universe that are coming after people, and that's how the world is being set up, rather than the leader talking about these different worlds, which is definitely setting up like incursions, which incursions in the comics has to do with two worlds colliding, which is what sets off Secret Wars with the multiverse dying. So what could be happening is that this war that they see coming is the war of other planets trying to fight and stop these incursions from happening. Doom taking over, creating battle world for Secret Wars, having the different Earths go against one another. Like, I think that's what's going to happen in the next movies, and that's what this was setting up. People were saying this was the worst post-credit scene they've ever seen, and even saying it was worse than Morbius. It's not worse than Morbius. It's just something that I think people didn't really want to see. I think people wanted to see Sam recruiting another Avenger. I think that's what we wanted to see. But I digress. At the end of the day, the future of the MCU is here. We're getting ready for what's to come with the next Avengers team, Secret Wars and Doomsday, Joaquin becoming Falcon, and now the Red Hulk being in this universe. So these are the next big steps for the MCU. We have a bunch of stuff that's going to be coming forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to be happening with the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, especially because Bucky was set up in this to be Congressman. I'm curious to see now what his role in Thunderbolts is going to be for that first bit of the movie and how he's going to transition into being that hero again. And at the end of the day, the movie was enjoyable. It's not atrocious. It's not that bad. I think there's just a lot of problems with it that could have been easily fixed with some tweaks, maybe a little bit of a longer run time to make it feel more cohesive, especially because some of the scenes definitely seem like they're stitched together because of the reshoots. We could kind of tell it was kind of a mess all over the place, but I still had a good time watching it. I think I will actually enjoy it more if I go watch it again, because I feel like I'm just going to go in to watch it for fun. I'm just going to enjoy watching it because I know what's going to happen. I'm not going to be taking notes, nothing else. I think it'll be a different experience, and I'm actually looking forward to doing that. Were there any other Easter eggs and references you noticed during this movie that I didn't mention? Because I feel like I caught them all. There might have been a couple I didn't, but I feel like I did. And what did you think of the movie, the post-credit scene, and what do you think is going to happen for the future of the MCU? We have a lot to talk about. I know this was a lot longer than I've normally made. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date with all my Marvel, DC, and anime breakdowns. I'll talk to you later when it's time for another Marvel movie, or DC, or anime if you're into that.